All right, y'all. We are now going to start step number 5 of the 5-step Carbon tutorial. So this is our last and final step, numero cinco, in which we will be deploying our app and all of our hard work to the IBM cloud. So I actually already did this, but so please just make sure to fetch upstream and create a new branch. So the first step that I'll be going into is just building our app and then running it. Can't spell. Perfect. Cool. So then it asks us to create an IBM cloud account. Since I'm an IBMer, and for all IBMers, that'll just be our IBM email. And next, so far we've been developing a development environment where static asset optimization hasn't been a priority. If you reference our index.scss, you'll see one import that is pulling in Carbon SAS build, which we should see here. To give you an idea of what's all included, open up our node module. And I believe it's Carbon, and then Carbon components, and we're going to go to our styles. Where are you? Sorry, this is so tedious. Here we go. And then from there, our SCSS and globals. Okay. And then our styles. Cool. So it looks like these are some of the default styles that we have that are included in our node modules. And you'll see imports like accordion, slider, tooltip, etc. Keeping the feature flag sassmap, replace styles .scss import with. So this is all within our index.css in our source directory. And where is this? Hold on, let's make sure. Oh, here it is. Okay. In comparing to the included styles.scss, you may be asking what happened to importing bars, colors, theme, etc. Many of these global SAS partials get imported through the components. For example, when we open node modules to see its dependencies, no harm in importing them as styles. No harm in importing them as styles.sas does, but for simplicity here, we'll let the components pull them in. And it seems like we can read a little bit more on here, which I will definitely read. But now we're going to build for production. Before we deploy our app, we need to create an optimized production build with this command. You may need to Control C to stop the development environment first. So we're going to do that. Oh, goodness. Okay. Looking at package.json, you'll find yarn build to run this script that we just ran. As a lot of this may seem like magic, since the build configuration came from React App, go ahead and check out their production build guidelines. For now, we're going to move on to the manifest file, or creating a manifest file. Now that we have a production build, let's get it on the cloud. We're going to use static file build pack to deploy our web app. Since this is a Cloud Foundry build pack, we'll be using the CF command line interface. If running cf-help doesn't work for you, chances are you'll need to install the CLI. Okay. I'm going to try that actually. Make sure I have it installed. Yeah. So we're going to install quickly. Okay. To install the CLI for MacOS using Homebrew, do the following. I've definitely installed Homebrew, so we're going to go ahead and do that. If it yells at me, okay, we do have Homebrew in there, and then we're going to install this. While that's going, let's go back to our instructions. With the CLI installed, next we need to create a manifest.yaml file in the root of the project. Okay, that might take a while. So we just created our manifest.yaml file within the root of our project. Hopefully, there we go. Now it's doing something. To prevent multiple apps trying to use a Carbon tutorial name, replace username with your GitHub username below to make sure our apps are uniquely named. Cool. So we're going to add this to our YAML file. And while that's doing that, I am going to add the very last command for installing our Cloud Foundry CLI. Okay. Perfect. Close this for now. Actually, let's double check that it installed properly. Verify installation. Perfect. Good to go. No, with this setup, we're still using a GitHub API or GitHub Personal Access Token saved in the .env local. If you haven't created a GitHub Access Token yet, see step 3. You can put the environment variable in the manifest file or manually add it to the IBM Cloud dashboard. But since we're building off previous tutorial steps, nothing more is needed. Okay. Create a new static file in the root of the project named static file. Okay. Oops. Just gonna do this here. Oh no, cancel. Okay. This tells the app to deploy from the build folder and not the root of the project. So we're going to add this to our static file. Hopefully I'm doing that right. Cloud Foundry ignore. After telling Cloud Foundry what to include, you can also specify what to ignore. Create a top-level CF ignore file. Cloud Foundry doesn't let you push read-only files, specifically files with permissions 400. So to prevent issues with deploy, add our CF ignore. Okay, so we're going to add our node modules cache command to our CF ignore. Okay, so let's add a new file. CF ignore file. Okay. And add this to our CF ignore. You can speed up deploys by decreasing the files uploaded through Cloud Foundry. To accomplish this, ignore any folder not required by the production application on IBM Cloud. For example, in this case of serving static files, you can ignore node modules and source because the only folder being served is the build. Cool. Okay. Next, we're going to deploy our app. So log into IBM Cloud with, okay. Oh goodness, never. Oh, let's see. I just added. Okay. Let's see. Deploy app using the CF push command since manifest.yaml is in our root directory. We don't need to specify it in the push command, but if you have multiple manifest files to target different environments, it's pretty good practice to specify the file. Okay, so one time go to get one out. Oops. There are two issues that I ran into kind of doing this earlier that I wanted to mention. So one, my Bluemix login, or sorry, my IBM login was pointed at my IBM email. And because for this project we're using our personal emails, so making sure to run this command first to log in. It then asked me for the email that I wanted to point it to. It asked me for the password to authenticate, and now it targeted to my personal email that I'm using. So I'm going to run this command again and hope that it works. Okay, so we're going to copy this and paste. Yay! Okay. And from there, let's look at our next steps. Deploy app using CF push command. Since manifest.yaml file is in our root directory, we don't need to specify the push command. But if you have multiple manifest files that target different environments, it's good practice to specify the file. Okay. So we're going to do that. Cool. So now that we've done that and pushed our YAML, our manifest.yaml file, it looks like we're going to add a script. So to make it easy on ourselves by not needing to remember that command, let's add a script in package.json. We can combine the build and deploy steps to make sure we only deploy immediately after running the build. Cool. So it looks like we'll be adding this to our package.json. Where are you? I can add this down here. And then next time you want to deploy, you can simply run yarn deploy. Let's try it. Okay, so we just added this script to our package.json, and it took a long time, as you saw. But yeah, this is where I added it, and everything built and ran perfectly fine. There was one thing that I needed to update. If I can go to it, it did fail at one point, and so I just needed to run one command, and it was basically npm rebuild node.sass, because it broke when it was trying to compile and build. Okay, so just note on that. Let's move on to creating a pull request, our last and final Carbon tutorial pull request, and here we go. Perfect. And we're going to do a commit and a push. And here we go. Perfect. And then we're going to push to origin. And while it's doing that, this is what my deployed Carbon tutorial project looks like, which is pretty freaking awesome. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that word, sorry. Pretty awesome. So they did mention at the very end here that they wanted us to add our Bluemix.net URL to our pull request description. So let's do that now. Let's see, new pull request. Let's do React step 5. This is our last step, y'all, our last pull request. React step 5. Here we go. Awesome. Okay. Create our pull request. And then we're adding our URL to the description. There it is. Awesome. And that should be it. Did my description show up? Hopefully. Update comment. There it is. Perfect. Okay, so I guess just to wrap everything up again, this is step 5 that we just completed. So we've now officially completed all of the steps of the Carbon tutorial. We've installed Carbon, we've built out the pages, added components, fetched from the GraphQL API, and rendered that information. We've done so much. And last but not least, we've deployed to the IBM Cloud, and wanted to leave off on some just overall final thoughts of the entire tutorial. One, I think it was incredibly well documented and easy to follow. The expectation was that anyone from kind of any spectrum of development experience should be able to complete the tutorial successfully, and I think that's very, very true. Carbon also did a really great job of adding a ton of resources sprinkled in throughout the entire process, which is really, really great as well, just as a supplemental resource. So yeah, this has been a really exciting and fun learning opportunity. A few kind of just small things that I hiccuped on along the way, if that's a verb. But it was all just kind of personal authentication stuff. So I had a little bit of trouble in step 3 with my GitHub Access token, which I kind of talked about in video number 3, and then authentication with the DApp Google extension. So I talked a little bit about that in video number 4, and basically installed the extension and walked through that authentication process. The last step particular to this tutorial number 5 was I was running into retargeting issues with my email account to deploy to Bluemix. The one thing that did help me was before we completed the very last step, where is it? Oh, of CF login, is actually just running CF login on its own. And then I was able to retarget to my personal GitHub email that I'm using for this project. One last thing is making sure that you are, when you make your pull request, that your base is React Step 5, and that you do add your Bluemix URL that you deployed to the description in the PR. And the last thing I wanted to say was just thank you to the Carbon team for this amazing learning opportunity. It's I don't even know how long it took them to put all of these resources together and to create this tutorial, but thank you to all the members of the community that were involved, and I really hope that there were at least some pieces of information that were valuable to those who are walking through this tutorial. The videos are kind of long, so definitely recommend fast forwarding through a lot of the pieces, but hopefully I was able to solve some problems that other people ran into as well. And thank you all for taking the time, and happy coding.